And fighting for your... I think this was your third world title fight in Cage Warriors, where you won it.
Yeah.
Luke Shanks.
Yeah.
What was it like coming back from 2 title fight losses and then in your third one to actually win the belt?
It was I don't know, actually. It's a hard question because for a lot of people before that it was like you should give up now, sort of thing. But I've never been one to look at it that way. Like you might have knocked me back a step, but like the goal is still the same. And I think if in those fights I'd have been dominated or really beat up in the fights where I'm losing them, I might have had a decision to make about like where my skill level's at. In all the fights that I've lost, I'd probably say I was winning in the majority of them and have been clipped or caught or hit with a good shot or whatever. So it's enabled me to take away that little bit of positive and look at it in a different light. Like my skill level, I feel anyway, is still one of the best flyweights in the world. I need to work on judgment, focus, and like staying in the moment. I think is quite important. Find my mind can wander during the fight when it shouldn't, to maybe a step ahead or some really wild things as well.
Do you think about a lot of like wild things when you're fighting?
No, there'd just be like funny things during fights that happened. Like when I fought Paul Marin years ago and I elbowed him, and his eye looked like it had come up and was like, what's the word? Like it was going vroom, vroom,
Vibrating.
Obviously it wasn't.
Like you're
What's going on? Right? And I was looking at it, I was really focused on it, and then he hit me with a right hand and I was on my ass. I'm like, okay, focus, fucks. Do you know what I mean? And there'd be moments where I'd be like, I'd lose focus. Not lose focus, but my mind would drift, I guess. And I might see somebody in the crowd and I'd be like, oh my God, that looks really like... Who the fuck's that? That's that bloke, what's his name?
That's so funny.
And then they'll get clipped again and I'll be like, no!
That is mad though, isn't it?
Yeah,
That you can have them sort of thoughts in the pinnacle of what you're doing. Like there's another man trying to... You know, some people say when they're fighting they don't hear the crowd, like they don't hear nothing, they only barely hear their corners.
Yeah.
It's like, and then you get other people who are like, they can still see people and like, they're just like, it's mental, isn't it?
It's mad how the brain just works though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like, it's fascinating.
It is, and a lot of it is like just trying to control your brain for the whole of that day, because your brain, if you allow it, is going to tell you, what are you doing? You're going to go and fight a man now, right? Actually, you should be at home eating crisps on the sofa, getting fat. Why are you doing this going into a fight?
It's funny. I recently run a marathon and
Oh,
basically, I'm through the whole marathon. I'm just battling. You're just going through the emotions. 1 minute you're like, I'm gonna catch that person. In front. I've got him. You catch up to him. You're like, oh shit, you shouldn't have done that. Now you're. And then you're like, oh no, slow down. You got this. And then 2 miles out, you're like, nah, you ain't got this. You may as well just give up. Walk. You're like, walk. Just walk. There's no point. You may as well just walk the rest of the way. And then you get through it, and you're like, fucking, that's just mentally battling. It was a mental battle.
Yeah, I've had that I don't think I've had that very much as a pro. As an amateur, I remember being in quite a few fights. I know I was caught in a guillotine, I think, in the first fight where I won a title, and in that, the guy, he had my neck, it was so tight, the referee was there above me, right? I'm looking at him, and I'm looking straight at him, and he's got his eyes on me, but I'm drifting away to like 50 years in the future looking at my family, right? And like you see on the video, this is all like, obviously, in your head, it feels like much longer, but it's seconds. But in the video, you see my feet fucking doing all this twitching. I'm like, I must have been so close to being out. And then I come back and I won like 2 minutes later.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
But there are moments like that.
Sorry, I was about to say, do you think that's why, like, what stopped you from getting, like, choked out is you're having, like, that give you that extra few seconds?
Yeah, possibly. And it's maybe that, like, he's almost shut everything off, and you're now in that weird kind of place, like, halfway between.
That inner realm.
Yeah.
That dream
And I'm
realm.
like- because obviously the referee's looking at my eyes. My eyes are still open. So he's like, he's safe. But if he'd have looked at my legs,
He might have.
he'd have probably called the fight.
Yeah.
And I've been in another fight where, like, the guy had my neck and he had an arm bar in the first round, and the guy was just an absolute beast. And those were opportunities all the way through that first round where my brain said, just tap. But then I had to check it again and say, what are you doing? Don't be that guy.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Because I've spoken to other fighters before, and I've seen them go in fights, and there's quite a few fighters have lost fights where they've tapped when they haven't needed to, but
They
their
haven't
brain has
battled it.
told them to.
Yeah.
You know, and guys who are really good ground guys and that, they've told me, like, that my brain just it overcame, like, that inner voice as well that was trying to battle back, and I tapped before anything was even on, sort of
Yeah.
thing. You know, so it's always like a battle of you versus
it's
you.
another person, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's just another guy.
It's like
out
Lord of the
there,
Rings, like Gollum, like when Gollum's in the water. It literally is. That is your brain. That's like it's like Gollum's in the water saying, "Do this," and you're like, "No." Then he kind of goes, didn't he? And he's like, then he comes back later. It's it's so mad. But that is the beautiful thing about life and, like, learning about yourself. I feel like martial arts is like that. It's quite. You're learning about yourself the whole time. A lot of it's quite self, because it's you versus you at the end of the day. Everything's quite self.
But also you can get put in sticky situations where
Yeah.
you've got another human being wanting to come for you. So it's sort of like, it's probably the closest thing you can get to like a war, sort of like a battle.
Yeah.
But just no swords.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, that Luke Shanks fight as well when you won the belt was it was a mad fight as well.
Yeah, it was a good fight.
When you won the belt, was it just that recognition that, like, everything I'd done, everything when people told me to quit or people said I should quit or maybe it's up, was that just good recognition to say, like, I was right?
I'd like to say yes, but not really for me. I'd never really look at it any more than it's just another fight. Getting a belt is always, it's always an added bonus, but it's the same thing for me as, like, celebrating a victory. I really very, very, very rarely do anything more than shake a man's hand because he's gone to battle with me. The recognition more so is, like, I've got the win. That's great. Are you okay? Is everything okay with you? All right, show everybody else I'm okay. And now give my thanks to everybody who's come, who's supported me, who's trained with me, who's helped me get this far. Like, my appreciation is for all of you. I'm going to do this no matter what, but you take time for me. So my selfishness means I need to take a moment to say, like, thank you. And I'm grateful for your time, your effort, your energy. You don't want to get on a fucking Sunday morning, get beat up by me and then have another person come in and get beat up by me, the same thing. But I appreciate you taking that, that time out of your family time. So for the last fight as well, at Christmas, a lot of people came in when they could have been doing other things, so it's a moment just to be grateful, show my gratitude.